Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Friday. I am so excited to be here with Diane Eisner. I am just super excited that we are going to be getting into the topic of the labor shortage. What is truly the driver? What is truly what we're experiencing right now, and how can we fix it? But Diane, I have to introduce her really quick before we get into our conversation because she is a powerhouse. Um, First and foremost, Diane is an entrepreneur and executive who currently is the co founder and CEO of Bycor, a venture backed construction labor marketplace. Previously, she was the CWO of the Cities Group at the We Company. She was at Waze and later at Google for 10 years, and she started the U.S. office of Waze in 2009, acquired by Google in 2013. She ran growth, business development, and platform. She serves on the board of SAIA, Inc. and Gray Area Foundation for the Arts. She is a venture partner at Obvious Ventures and a co-founder at the with Lupe Fiasco of Neighborhood Start Fund. So there's more things on the list, but what I would like to do is just welcome Diane to the show and really just thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Excellent. So, that being said, let's get into it.
All right.
You've worked at notable companies, primarily focused on tech. What is your passion for construction in the first place?
Oh gosh, it's a couple things, but also it's mostly in my blood. So I come from a family of truck drivers and trades folks, and after this crazy career in Silicon Valley, it just feels good to be able to use what I've learned to be able to support that community. That's first and foremost. And then all kinds of things that I've done, even with Waze, we did something called the Connected Citizens Program, where we were putting our data into traffic operation centers around the world, probably in about 1,500 cities or so by the time I left. And, with some very simple tools, they were able to use that data to reduce congestion and improve emergency response time. So that was the first time I saw that you could use software and data to make a difference in the real world with physical things, the built environment. So that got me really excited.
That's so awesome. So, you have a background, your family, really is the foundation of kind of your drive to this industry in the first place, and you saw how data connected to really driving valuable outcomes, and that analysis. So, what do you see as some of the problems that we're facing in the built environment today?
Oh my gosh, so many since we've been diving in. But I mean, I guess we'll focus mostly on, the labor shortage is a big one. And, in a lot of ways, you have to look at why are we having a labor shortage? And, it's the obvious things like, reduction in funding for trade schools, people wanting to go get a college degree, parents deciding that it would only be good for their kids if they could have a white collar job and go to university. But the media plays a huge role in it too, right? If you look at images of construction workers in the 20s or 30s, it's powerful, it's inspiring, there's a lot of pride. And then you look at the 50s and 60s and there's them and it's beautiful. And then late 70s, you start seeing people portrayed in the media as like somebody bent over and seeing the butt crack or something, and that kind of image has stayed, and it's been pretty uninspiring. I think for people wanting to come into the industry. So I feel like media has played a kind of a negative role. Anyway, I see that all changing though, right? Because some of it is just about where are the opportunities. At the same time, people are coming out of college with a lot of debt and not necessarily getting the kind of jobs that they thought they would get. So I think there's this realization now. Also, millennial attitudes are shifting. They want to do things they love. They want to work with their hands. So I feel like we might be really at the beginning of a resurgence, a re-rise of the worker, so to speak. And that gets me pretty excited.
Yeah, it's almost as though we're on this trajectory of really understanding how the new generations are going to take over, if you will, because I mean, that's how industries work, right? New generations come in and there has to be a skill handoff. But in addition to that, what you're describing is a perception change. That's starting to kind of also take place too. Um, that's really interesting. What do you think is driving that perception change? And then, do you have things that you're seeing that are causing that?
Well, so I mean, there's obviously a lot of friction in people finding jobs, right? Because the social networks are pretty narrow in this industry, and so I think that using technology to bring people together is definitely one benefit. But on the perception side, I would say, if you look at the problems we face, like our big social problems, right? We've got problems related to environment, right? Yesterday was Earth Day. We have got problems related to inequality in this country anyway. And so many of those things can be tackled by the built environment or through building. And so, I mean, you look at these technologies and you look at new sustainable materials, it's about to be a really exciting time, not just because learning those things is fun and using these
Yeah.
tools is fun, but because it's about to, I think, be proving that it can solve our social problems as well.
Man, that's so deep.
I mean, that's how I think about it. That's what keeps me going. Obviously, there's the business side and there's this, all of this, but I do think that it is deeper. It is deeper. And think about it, the, affordable housing crisis we're in, we're not keeping up with the infrastructure we need. We're so far behind. And, those are the obvious ones, but I love thinking that we're in for a cultural change too, where, we look at each other as equal. There's not this hierarchy based on what kind of job you have. And I think this is where the millennial attitudes come in handy too, because they care a lot more about the climate than my generation. They care a lot more about technology. It seems like a progressive generation.
Yeah, completely agree. I was just in a presentation by a furniture company not too long ago who was really talking about Gen Zs and how we have to really think a bit differently about really responding to the social causes that all of us really should be interested in, right? And resolving, or at least making steps towards resolving and having those difficult conversations, because it's a need right now. It's
Yeah,
always been a need, but the Gen Zs are demanding it, which is really, really cool to see.
that is.
So I'm glad that you're seeing that too. It's good to kind of see it from many different perspectives. So, what do you see this labor shortage problem specifically causing for the built environment today?
Well, for one thing, I think it's like almost 50% of companies say that they have rising construction costs due to problems with finding labor. So it's definitely making things more expensive for everyone to go and find these workers. And that trickles down, like I said, all the way to being able to have affordable housing or things that really make a difference if you've got these rising costs. It is slowing projects down because the other piece of this puzzle, it's not just that it's hard to find the right skilled workers because there are so few of them, but that they exist, and then how to find them, and then that there's high turnover in the industry, right? It's what the construction industry has, one of the highest turnover rates. And now obviously it's different company to company, but it's over 20%. And so, you've got people coming and going all the time, and that's slowing things down as well. So I think it's a cost issue, it's a time issue, it's you have a lot of less skilled people out there because they haven't had a chance to get the education, they haven't had a chance to go out and learn those skills that are sorely needed to make really beautiful, stable buildings. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's so it almost has like a yo-yo effect, right? If we don't have enough labor, it causes the purses, the wallets to be pinched. So not only do we have issues with investment into the properties, but it's investment into our laborers. right?
Yeah,
Themselves, our trade partners, and they're not feeling as fulfilled as a result of that as well. And so they're leaving the industry. There's high turnover. People aren't feeling really good about this whole scenario. It's a cyclical effect almost. Is that what you're seeing?
I definitely see that. And, I feel like there was this other level of the labor shortage that happened, during the crash in around 2008, where a lot of people had to leave the industry because there weren't jobs at the time,
Hmm.
and they haven't come back. And so, since then, I feel like there are building booms in different places, but it's just not the kind of thought and culture and innovation that you could see if we had the right folks and more of those right folks. So yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it puts a lot less pride in our neighborhoods and in our cities as well. There's something fundamental about this pride notion as well. Like, wow,
Mm.
I built that thing, or this is my town, or this is the person who built my town, and so thank you for building my kid's school, or thank you for building the hospital. It's like pride and gratitude could come back a little bit too for the industry.
Yeah, yeah. You and I have spoken extensively about that pride piece and wanting almost to make sure that we're building an inclusive and diverse communities that really care about each other. It's That's a really key piece. So, for those of you who are just chiming in, we are speaking with Diane Eisner. She's the co-founder and CEO of Bycore, and we are talking about all things labor today. What are the challenges that we're facing today? What is the cause to the current labor shortage that we are experiencing in the built environment industry? What does the labor shortage do to impact what we're experiencing itself? And then we're going to be talking a little bit more about this network, first of all, that Diane has created. But in addition to that, just what does inclusion look like? I think in our built-in environment, how do we continue to foster that? So with that, we're going to jump into a question about what are you seeing as far as solutions go for this labor shortage problem? I know lots of people are talking about tech, like bringing in robotics. They're talking about all sorts of things in order to kind of pick up the need. But what are you seeing as far as quote unquote solutions for this labor shortage right now?
So I think it's a few things. One, there's going to be a tremendous amount of new jobs, right? So there's nearly 500,000 open positions just the year, and so that's going to attract people that have been hit hard, and might be in another industry, maybe lost their jobs. So I feel like just having the knowledge that there's a lot of good jobs coming and that they're stable jobs is going to be one piece. I feel like there's policy decisions that we could be making. I know that more money is being funneled into trade schools, but we got to get that up and going. And the trade school of the future, what does it look like, right? It does have robotics. It does have, LiDAR and automation, and it is much more technical. And I'm just dreaming about there being enough money to build these schools. And you can really combine the online and the in-person instruction. So I feel like just more money for trade schools is a big one because we got to get people skilled. Let's see what else. You mentioned technology. That itself is going to, I think, make a lot of people who wouldn't consider this industry find it exciting. And then the perception. I really wish that we could have more in the media that is making these folks out to be superheroes, right? And if it takes an exoskeleton that hardly anybody uses just to kind of get the right image to, why not? Why aren't we showing people in the light that is, we need some positive media images of our hardworking trades folks.
Yeah.
That's what I want
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. You bring up a really good points about the training, and almost upscaling the training, maybe bringing it up to our times, if you will, utilizing the technology that we have available to us right now, but investing into those facilities, investing into those programs in order to make it more exciting, right? To your point, and also something um, that perhaps people who have been in the industry, been tradespeople for a while, where they can get the ability to upskill and
Yeah.
reskill in particular ways so that they can kind of reinvest back into themselves so that they can enter into the market in a maybe different way, especially if they've lost their jobs or considered changing industries and they're still interested in coming back. That sounds like a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Even, I'm giving a talk in a couple of weeks. So I live in Palo Alto, which is Silicon Valley. It's all tech. Like everybody codes from the time they're 6 years old. And I'm giving they're having a TED talk there, TEDx, Palo Alto High School, right, for the high schoolers. And I'm going in to give a talk about what great jobs there are in construction and why they should consider, non-tech jobs in the tech hub. And the kids that are organizing it are so excited about this. No one has ever talked to them about these things before. So we gotta get it out there.
Yeah, I've had a similar experience where I've shared about what I do, what I've done over the years, and just like all of the parts and pieces of what comes together, all the people that come together in order to put together a facility. Oh my goodness.
It's incredible, right? 750 people, 10,000 people. I mean, the numbers are staggering. The complexity is so interesting. And yeah, I mean, there's another challenge too, right? Which is like, how do you keep track of all that? And that's another situation that the industry has not figured out. How do you coordinate all of those people and, not treat them like numbers because there's so many of them? And just kind of getting people organized, coordination, communication, all of that as well. So, poof,
Yeah.
we got a lot. We got a lot to do.
Yes, we do. Well, to ask you directly, what are you doing, Diane? Like, what are you? So, tell us a little bit about Bycore. Tell us about the actual network platform that you have, and how that's helping to pair people with real estate projects.
Yeah, so we launched it in September, and it started as a labor marketplace just for construction. It's an app, it's a website, and so it's really matching the people out there with the workers with the companies. And there's a lot of friction in it now. So it's not just that the people aren't there; it's hard to find them. There's so much friction in the process. Recruiting takes a long time. There's no real good way to build those bridges, and so we spent a lot of time building that up. I think we talked to in person our first 5,000 workers, at least maybe 8,000 or something like that. But our team talked to a lot of people when they were onboarding to figure out how do you get good information, because it's not like a lot of people have resumes. And so how do you get the work experience and all of the skills in one place, and not just say skills carpentry, but inside of that, how can we be specific, right? What equipment can you operate? How can you do all of that? So just trying to figure out how to get great data into the system was a big piece of it. And then with the companies as well, how do they do a better job with their job descriptions and their postings to find the right people? And how do you just take out a lot of that friction? So that's what we were doing. But then as we talked to, I think we talked to maybe 50 something GCs personally as well. And they were like, okay, yes, labor shortage, super important problem to be solving, but it's disconnected from everything else. What we really need is a labor management solution. And so actually I don't know if you saw it in Construction Dive, but we just launched the product where we're calling it a labor operating system, or a labor OS. And it's just trying to bridge building the crews with managing the crews, right? Trying to connect the field and the office, and making sure that you have one place, whether it's all your subs and trade contractors that are going to be on site, but everybody on site in one place. And then if there's a gap, then hopefully we're going to be able to fill that with our marketplace as well. So that's what we're doing. Yeah.
That's really cool, and I love how you kind of had an initial plan and evolved in order to adapt to what the actual needs are. So that LOS, that labor operating system, that sounds really cool, and it will help to identify a lot more clearly, like what are those gaps, how do we fill them, and how then do you get now the skilled professionals to really just access that information, and be able to take advantage of the marketplace. So
Yeah, and
really
it's
cool.
cool because getting people to put in the right information about what they've done is always super hard, right? Like that was the first problem. And so now you've got all these people in the system, and all the tasks that they've completed are now automatically attached to their profile without them having to do anything. And so nobody has to worry about all that entry, right? It seems like everything we're doing, whether it's for the worker side or the company side, it's about just, can we stop filling things out? Just make it simpler. Like, just if we can have a better way to collect the information. And so obviously we've done a lot of work on the data on the back end side. Our team is kind of, I don't know how they've done everything we've done so far. Our team is amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, and you're taking out those friction points, like how you said, right? Like you're allowing people to just kind of use the data that already exists about them in the system in order to just reduce the amount of work that it takes in order to find a role, to find a person,
Yeah,
right? Kind of both directions. Super
yeah,
cool.
yeah. It's really cool. And it's funny to me that the way it's been structured is like HR or hiring kind of happens over here, and then decisions on project management software and tasks sit over here, and they're not blended together. And so we're kind of just, taking over where like Microsoft Project or P6 end off, taking all that information, getting it into our systems, so they don't have to double enter it, and just giving them very powerful and simple ways to manipulate the data, track the progress of the projects. And you can't unlink that from the people who are doing the work. It's just not, doesn't, that was confusing to me, that was, there was such a disconnect there.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of times, well, it depends on the company, depends on the people managing the process, but you try to do resource management, and like you said, like those software tools. Back in the day, I used to be a P6 nerd.
Ooh,
So yeah, I at one point in time, yeah, I was managing for one of my clients the program schedule for all of their projects, all their capital projects, a government client, um, in P6, and resource management was huge, not only just for our internal folks, but also understanding how the labor ties to what not the labor, the cost ties to the labor that we're expecting on site, and evaluating, is this enough, right? Should we be having conversations about, um, will we be getting this done on time because of how our contractors have planned out their labor, is the conversation, right? You don't want to get into the weeds if you're on the owner's side and ask too much about means and methods, but all the time we would be asking those kinds of questions. How can we ensure we're planning on meeting, this end date kind of thing? So really interesting stuff. I just nerded
yeah,
out.
no, and
Sorry.
you nerded out. No, because the other thing is, it comes down to, no, I'm super excited to nerd out. It comes down to the same things, right? Like, we we don't spend enough time in the field building our technology, right? And so it was really cool this time, like being with all the sub foremen, being in the field, like so everybody has a different interface based on what they need, and to make it as simple as possible for them. So right, obviously the project manager needs a desktop version that can manipulate, thousands of rows of tasks and people and all of that. And that still has to be simple for them, but powerful. And in the field, they want something that's as easy to use as messaging, right? And they deserve it. So it's so much of it just came down to understanding exactly what people wanted to do in the field with what piece of information, and just giving it to them. That was a
Yeah.
cool process. I liked it. I liked being
Yeah.
in the field.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at like who's your end user on the end of the platform, and what are they trying to do? Like, what simple tasks do they actually need to do, and how can we help? So yeah, that's super super cool, fascinating.
And like a little
So
thing,
yeah,
creating a subtask, right? Like that was such a big deal for me. Like, oh, you can create subtasks so that the foreman can get it in this way, but they can like chunk it out there. Like, that's easy to build. Like that was
yeah.
easy. So just, I don't know. It's a cool process about the industry. I only started this company like a year, maybe a year and a half ago, and it's just been constant learning. I feel like I'm still a student.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I love being in the learner's seat when it comes to this industry. I feel like I'm learning every single day. Yeah. So with that, I wanted to talk with you about minority representation. You and I have talked about this a bit. And you and your partners have been really factoring inclusion and equity into how you're carrying out this business. I mean, you talked about social um, causes and making sure to kind of address those in how we're thinking about fulfilling the needs for labor. But I mean, what are you looking at around this and how your business is showing up?
Yeah, I mean, the diversity issue is really challenging in this industry, isn't it? I'm surprised at the underrepresentation of different ethnic groups. So, I mean, I think in a lot of ways it's the same way in tech, right? Like it's pretty bad in tech too.
Yeah.
And so people say, "Oh, well, I don't even believe this is still debate. Well, we don't want to hire people based on their race." Or, like, of course not. But you need to do your outreach and get people into the funnel in a different way. Like, who are you inviting to apply? Who are you inviting to come get skilled? And we just have to make sure that it's equitable even from that side. So even when we're out recruiting, I mean, it's just a small thing, but we made sure that we were in Spanish from the very beginning because we don't want to exclude people. So we're in English and Spanish and Portuguese, and we'll keep doing more because, there are great people out there. We just have to make sure that they can be, welcomed to the party, so to speak, right? It doesn't mean anyone is going to hire them because of that, but we want to make sure that we're welcoming. So that's how it shows up for us, just even on the recruiting side. But then, I hate to keep going back to culture. It's really hard for people on the job site too, if there is a lot of overt racism, right? I think it's really cool what Turner did to like stop projects actually when racial incidents occurred, and that took a lot of bravery for a corporate, because there was money lost there in stopping a project, and I like that. So you have these kind of role models as well, and it'll just keep getting more normal. And then what you're going to have is that if you don't have a welcoming environment, you're going to lose money because projects are going to stop. And that's when it really starts to take hold, I think.
Yeah, yeah, those are really great examples. I mean, language, I think there's it kind of comes back around to the training too, right? Like there's a addressing people who people who need to be included by making sure that the language that they speak in is available for them to understand the information you're trying to share. But there's the other layer of if there's a if there's a training gap or if there's a translation gap, which sometimes people perceive them as the same, which they're not, distinguishing those two things as they really are. I perhaps there's that piece too, right? Because
That's a really good point. Yeah.
I mean, I think and I'm not trying to solution in any way because I'm at this point I'm not qualified to do that, but I'm just really interested in what are the opportunities, right? Like just I feel as though there's so much to be done to address this issue. And I so much appreciate what you're already doing. But to your point, it's about looking to those really great role models who are doing things right when it comes to when something is going on that's wrong. You stop,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? You stop, you address it, you have a conversation, you have a difficult conversation about it, and you really try.
Yeah.
Um, and I think one thing I'd be curious as to your opinion about this. Um, there's a lot of opportunity for training the corporates um, to just address these conversations, and providing an opportunity for that culture. I have a friend who provides trainings like this to organizations that are mostly primarily law firms. And we have this kind of conversation all the time that lots of people don't even know how to create that culture for these conversations to be had in the first place. So just curious as to your thoughts on
Yeah.
those things.
Well, I guess I'll give the Google example on that one again because I know it really well. When I first got to Google, I was like, I came from this crazy startup, right? Waze at that time, it was, we built it from nothing. We didn't have time to do trainings and things like we just didn't, we were running so fast as a startup. And then we got to Google and it was like, all right, training, 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 training. And then you get to the anti-bias training. You're like, oh, wow. Oh, no, I'm biased. You get to see your own biases as you take them because you think, oh, I don't have bias. And then you understand deeper what it can be, right? Is it age bias or is it racial bias or where is the bias? But we all have it. And I think that's a really good entryway into that conversation. And then it's like, all right, how do you fix it? But I think even just starting to take, some of what those tools were and that training was there and getting it out, into the world, I think it had a really good impact, really positive impact on our team.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think we don't have these kind of conversations enough um, in this particular industry. And when I think about the labor shortage, oftentimes I say, man, there's a market that's not even tapped into. To your point about like you're going to a school sharing about like, hey, this is what we do in the built environment industry. This is what we do in construction. There's quite a few demographics that don't even see construction as an opportunity
Yep,
because they don't see people in their families,
that's right.
actually, carrying out these roles. So it's an opportunity for us to think about. And I love the approach that you're already taking and the fact that you're thinking about this.
Yeah, and we can all do like the little bits as well, right? Like I made my son work construction last summer. That was when he was 16. Now he's 17. I was like, what do you want to do this summer? He wants to do construction.
Nice.
Yeah, it's good.
Nice.
There's
Well,
one other thing that we didn't get to talk about if
sure.
we have time, and it's just something that you and I have talked about in the past, which is long-term incentives
Yes.
inside of these bigger companies. That's another way that they can be role models, right? Is we tend to think of whether it's our skilled trades or laborers in construction, or whether it's the truck drivers in the big trucking companies, as even if they're full-time, like hourly workers. And one of the most compelling things about technology is that you're actually, you get stock options. You have some skin in the game, right? It's there's co-ops and all of that. And I know that construction companies have started to do that for their staff positions, at least some key staff positions. But what could it look like if we had long-term incentives for our workers? And I can't wait to see which company is going to lead that conversation, because I feel like it's really important. And you and I came up together with this really great idea of like a worker investment trust, right? So it's not just, we have REITs for the real estate side where investors will make money. Is there a moment where, that small amounts of money coming into this pool, if you stay on a project for long enough, some of it's, allocated to the workers, and over time, it's like they vest like you would as a stock option, but there's these other opportunities. So I don't think we have to take things that already exist. That might be the easiest, but we need to do something about long-term incentives and sharing it with the workforce.
Yeah. Completely 100% agree.
It's going to make people come running to the industry.
Right, right, because then there's an opportunity to think about how do I create wealth for myself and my families, right? Like this is I and not only do I get an amazing job that is stable, right? And I get to learn new skills every day because everybody 100% is learning every single day when you enter into this industry. But if you get stock options, you can build wealth for your family. I mean,
Yeah,
what's better than that? Like I think that sometimes those things are overlooked when you think about that. I mean, that's part of the reason why unions exist,
yeah,
because there's a need to support laborers, right? Like, and it's a matter of making sure that their rights are really acknowledged. And so if you provide these incentives, to your point, there's just a desire now, more of a desire to really carry out these roles, which makes complete sense
yeah.
in theory. And to your
In
point,
theory, anyway, right. And
right?
it will increase the turnover. I mean, if you look at the costs associated with the labor shortage and the high turnover rate, and then you think about how much less it would cost to give people long-term incentives in their projects or in their companies, come on. It's even
Yeah.
like economically, it just makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree, Diane. Yeah. Curious as to who will spearhead that idea. I'd love to see that carried out for sure. So with that, we've been talking with Diane about labor from all different perspectives. Her solution at Bicor, to really help pair up skilled tradespeople with contractors, with general contractors, in order to work on projects. There's just one small way to make a dent on this big problem that we have to really fulfill the need and the larger labor shortage problem that we have. But there's what I'm hearing from Diane, and I'm happy to hear, is that there is a change of perspective that she sees, and I see it too. That this industry is really cool. We are doing some friggin' amazing things using technology and really wanting to drive that perception and care more about social change. Yeah, and inclusion and all of the great stuff. So Diane, I just really appreciate you and this conversation that we've gone through. Is there anything that you want to share that we did not cover?
No, the one thing we didn't cover was the thing about the how are we going to have long-term incentive plans for our workers. I would love someone to take that on, and if anyone else has ideas too, I think both you and I want to hear them, Brittany, right?
Yep, exactly. We do. So those who are online, pop a note in the chat, say I'm interested, and we will respond to you. And if not, shoot me a DM on whichever platform you're watching this on. Happy to hear from you. Diane, how can someone who's watching this live stream, either now or when they watch it recorded, how might they reach out to you if they want to learn more about what you're doing? At Bicor?
So if they go to cruise.bicor.com, they're going to see the whole labor solution that we just launched. So that's it. And then ways to contact us are just all over the page. You can get a demo, or you can just shoot a question. And then it's very easy to get to me too. We're a whopping team of 9 people. So yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So continue to enjoy the warm weather, Diane. This has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate you and the time that you spent just sharing with the constructor audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brittany. This has been great. Bye.